You mentioned the WHO, who at the time was just echoing whatever China said. You know, when most of the public hears about the World Health Organization for the first time, we hear these big words and, you know, we see these logos and we just assume they're someone to trust like any major government. Who are they? What is their role? Who are they complicit with? Who pays their bills? What have we learned about the WHO, and has it gotten better or worse since Jan 2020?
Well, I wrote an article critical of the WHO back in 2014 after they made a hash of the response to Ebola. In that case, they were reluctant to declare a problem because they were under pressure from the countries in West Africa where the problem was happening, not to make too much of a fuss about it. And they admitted that. They investigated themselves. Dr. David Nabarro led an investigation, and it was a very, very self-critical report. And it said, look, you know, we shouldn't be doing that. And, you know, when Ebola is taking off in West Africa, the Director General of the WHO goes to a conference on tobacco control, not to a conference on Ebola. Do you see what I mean? You know, there was that kind of stuff going on. So I had my reservations about whether the WHO was fit for mission leading up to this. They had elected a new Director General, Dr. Tedros from Ethiopia, former Health Minister and Foreign Minister of Ethiopia and former Marxist, and very much China's candidate. China had gone around the world saying to all the countries, particularly in Africa, that it deals with, you know, where it's funding infrastructure projects and things, it said, look, please vote for Dr. Tedros, and if you do, we might be able to give you a bit more money for your projects and things like that. And so that was basically how he got the job. He was somewhat beholden to China. And China had become a much bigger donor to the WHO. It's not quite as big as Britain, but it's still a big donor. The US is obviously, or was the biggest until Donald Trump stopped funding it briefly, but there we are. And but China was very clear. We put a lot of money into the WHO, and we expect the WHO to do what we want. So they kicked Taiwan out of the World Health Assembly, for example, at China's behest. They recognized Chinese traditional medicine as a viable form of medicine in 2018 at China's behest. Now, this is, some of it's good stuff, you know, there's acupuncture and things, which is not bad, but some of it is quack medicine of the worst kind, which encourages trade in endangered wildlife. Eating pangolin scales, for example, you know, you might as well eat your fingernails, you know, it does not improve your health. So that was a bit anti-scientific, I think, to be fair. And then when this breaks out, the World Health Organization is extremely reassuring. We don't think it's spreading human to human. We think China has got this under control. And in January, Dr. Tedros goes to Beijing and he says publicly, words cannot express my admiration for what you're doing to control this virus. Well, those aren't quite the right words for a regime that is persecuting Dr. Wen, putting in jail people who've posted stuff on social media, refusing to disseminate information about what's happening, etc., etc. Those aren't the words I would have used, put it like that.
And how did their behavior continue over the following year?
Well,
they flip-flopped on a lot of issues as well, didn't they?
I mean, it became a farce in the end because the World Health Organization said, we're going to put together a team to go and look into the origin of this. And we all said, great, fine, who's going to be on it? And they said, well, that's up to the Chinese who's going to be on it. What? Yeah, the Chinese have veto over who's on it. Half the team will be Chinese, but the Westerners will also be vetoed by the Chinese. You know, we'll say who you can send. Right. And it took them 6 months to develop the terms of reference for that visit, that investigation. And when the visit finally happened, the Western members of the team suddenly found their visas weren't ready and the whole thing had to be delayed. And then they got to Wuhan in the January of 2021, and they had to spend 2 weeks in quarantine in the hotel. And then they had about 10 days of visits to various facilities in Wuhan. These included a day spent at the museum to celebrate the success of the regime in defeating Covid-19. Right? Was that really a useful use of their time? It included 3 hours at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, at the new campus, not the old campus, which is where the key work had been done, but never mind. Visiting the biosafety level 4 lab, which was not the one where this work had been done, but never mind. And being given assurances that they didn't have anything to do with it. At the end of which, the World Health Organization had a conference in Wuhan, a press conference in Wuhan, in which only 5 questions were allowed. Very, very long answers were given. And the international members nodded along with the conclusion that a lab leak was very unlikely, and much more likely was that it had come to Wuhan on frozen food from abroad, a theory nobody had produced the blindest bit of evidence for, and which didn't make the blindest bit of sense. Because if it's being imported into China on frozen food, A, the virus doesn't last very long on frozen food, B, where's it coming from? Isn't someone getting infected at the source? And isn't it going to other markets and being infected there? And C, when did lobsters last turn out to be a viable host for SARS-CoV-2? So this was a moment of utter humiliation for the World Health Organization, in my view. It was a farce, and it backfired on them badly. The result of that, as you remember, is that in the spring of 2021, for a relatively brief period, the world said, hang on a minute, this is ridiculous. We should be allowed to talk about a lab leak. We should be allowed to have the debate. And for a while, the media went back and said, sorry, we censored this. Sorry, we said it was a conspiracy theory. It's a perfectly viable theory. Now, since then, the media has been moving back towards calling it a conspiracy theory. So we've lost some of the progress that was made in that spring. But the World Health Organization did us a huge favor. If they hadn't held that ridiculous press conference, then I think our task in persuading the world to take the lab leak possibility seriously would have been much harder.
So Jim Rickards has just recorded a video that's not available to anyone in the public, and he's going to be talking about how this upcoming recession is going to be fast, it's going to be bloody, it's going to be nasty. But at the same time, he's going to show you how you can position yourself to profit from all of this chaos. Now, we've made this video only available to our viewers. Go to londonreal.tv/Jim. Watch that immediately. I can't say enough good things about Jim Rickards. He understands the global economic system better than any guest I've ever had on London Real. His predictions are almost uncannily true, and you can learn how to profit from his vision, from his expertise, and his understanding of economics. So go to londonreal.tv/Jim or click the link below. It's an excellent, excellent look on what's going to happen in the future and how you can position yourself to profit from that. Jim is one of the best in the business, one of my favorite guests on London Real, and he's very, very good at predicting the future and showing us all to profit from it. So click the link, and I hope you enjoy. Hey, it's Brian Rose, founder of the DeFi Academy. I've told you my 4-week crypto bootcamp is amazing, but don't take my word for it. This is what my students are saying.
The DeFi Academy was an amazing experience for me. It took me totally out of my comfort zone.
In this course, I was challenged, I was held accountable, and pushed to do things that honestly weren't always easy.
It's been phenomenal, and I can't believe we're already up on our 4 weeks. It has flown by.
Going through this DeFi accelerator by far was one of the best courses I've taken.
You do this course, you really get into the nitty-gritty of the activities that will make you comfortable with decentralized finance.
Thank you so much to Brian and everyone at London Real and the DeFi Academy for even putting together an amazing course like this.
Anybody else that wants to do it, please sign up. It is well worth the money.